So what's our second subject tonight?
Well, it kind of rolls in. It's also, actually tonight's kind of about voting, because a lot of voting things came up. There's the issue of the IRS and the 501c3s and the...
You're talking about the nonprofits.
Right, yeah, the NPOs.
We've touched on this before.
Yeah, the True to Vote was trying to...
What's True to Vote?
True to Vote is a Tea Party group, you know, one of those wacko, terrorist, jihadist
The ones that wear the bomb vests.
Yeah, the crazy people.
They care about taxation without representation.
Yeah. They're crazy
and
people.
They want a balanced budget.
Yeah,
and they just want this country to live within its fiscal means.
Yeah,
those terrorists, right?
Yeah, which are terrorists,
okay,
which is terrorism. Because like
everybody
everybody knows that the last 5 years we've spent $20 trillion. The government has. We haven't done it without a budget, so we don't know.
We've only spent what, $9 trillion in 5 years?
No, we've spent about 20.
20.
It was about 20. But anyway,
are we committed to spend 20?
Be that as it may, you know, if you can't, and we haven't had a budget for 5 years, so no one's ever approved that
budget.
No one's approved that money. No one knows where it went, and so why would you want to change that?
Well, I don't know, but I was.
Why would you be so crazy you want to change that?
You're like a
cruise
Congress prior to the last 5 years had a budget.
Yes,
and they had to go through budget resolutions,
yeah.
and they had to balance the budget,
yeah.
and they had to negotiate to balance the budget.
Yeah.
But we haven't had one in 5 years. Why is that, Mark?
Well, because what's going on now, the illustrious leaders we have and the people that we have now are so enlightened that we can't hold them to the same standards that we held previous administrations.
And why is that?
Well, because they're, like I said, they're so enlightened, they're so special.
And they know better than we know, right?
Much better. And not only that, you don't want to look at, you know, you don't know what their GPAs are, you don't know anything, because it would be unfair to ask them about that because they're so far above that you can't hold them to regular standards.
Are you trying to tell me that the people that are in charge of making a budget now just feel that we're beyond a budget?
No.
It's a living economy.
No,
we don't need a budget.
They're beyond budgets.
Beyond budget.
They're beyond budgets.
Is it like Beyond Thunderdome?
Beyond budgets, yeah. Okay. So and also now you have the federal government so deeply involved in the campaigns. I mean, you have a lot of federal workers campaigning 5 days a week, year after year.
What? Give me an example.
Well, in the case, like you have Lois Lerner.
Oh, wait a minute, Lois Lerner. We've touched on her before.
Okay, so
Isn't she with the IRS,
well,
allegedly?
She retired.
She retired.
But she used to be with Fair Political Practice Committee. So she's been doing a lot of election and voting things for many years. And what they did is that you've got about 10% of the electorate in the United States of America identifies themselves as Tea Parties. So what the federal government did in the last election is said, well, let's exclude that party.
You're talking about the last presidential election.
Yeah, let's exclude that party from campaigning.
Only about 10% of the people.
Yeah, and so because they're crazies. And it makes sense. You don't want crazies campaigning.
How much did the president win by?
Well, a percent or two.
A percent or two, but less than 10%.
But you don't want crazies participating in the election. I mean, they're just nutsos.
Those are the ones with a suicide vest.
Yeah, like the Ted Cruzes. They're crazy people.
I mean, they're saying they want a budget.
Well, they want
taxation with representation.
Well, basically what they're saying.
They want the government to control their spending. Is that what you're talking about?
No, the problem is they want to say, okay, if you want something, if you want to buy something, you've got to prove the money. That's crazy. I mean, we haven't done that in 5 years. The money comes, and you know how much money we get?
I have no idea.
Well, you know what it was, Sebelius, right?
Well, Kathleen Sebelius.
When they ask her, what's your budget?
Head of the
Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services.
Which is now merged with the IRS and the campaign.
Oh, yeah, they're all kind of merged together, all working in one direction.
So the political campaign.
Abortion on demand and no Tea Party.
No, but the thing about it is, what was her answer to what's your budget? Well, how much? There's never enough.
You need more.
There's never enough. So you can never tax enough. You can never spend enough. You can't have a budget in those conditions because...
You know, it's just restrictive.
We can't... Well,
Isn't it restrictive to have a budget?
Okay. So anyway, they did exclude one party, but that party... Now, if they tried to exclude the Democratic Party, someone would have really upset. Or they exclude the Republican Party, would have been upset. But the Tea Party, they excluded those from campaigns. They're nuts.
But that was only about 10%.
They're nuts anyway. They're nuts.
And by the way, that could have swung the vote of the presidential election, couldn't it, Mark?
Well...
Oh,
well, you know. Okay, so anyway, so True to Vote, you know, they had to wait 3 years for and now there's a lot of people that say, well, wait a minute, you know, a lot of liberal 501c3s were harassed too. You know, they were asked all these questions, who are your donors? And I think that's maybe more 3 or 4 or 5 or 10% compared to the other ones who were
90%.
95%. And also even the liberals who were audited or whatever, they got approved fairly quickly. Well, it didn't take 3 years.
Right.
So now the the
So you're saying
so
True to Vote is an organization that is
suing the IRS.
They're suing the IRS.
And the IRS saying, well, it's moot. You've got your clearance now. You're 513C.
So you're moot.
That's done. There's no more reason to sue us.
But wait a minute. Are they bringing up things like the effect of what the IRS did?
Well, they say, well,
now we talk about discriminatory treatment.
We're going to say, well, basically, it's kind of funny because the administration always accused True to Vote of election tampering, right? So they kept them from campaigning. So in order to stop the election tampering, they had to do some election tampering.
We had to do our own tampering.
So it's tampering versus tampering. It depends on how you look at it. But they're saying, okay, what was our damages? How about all the confidential information we were forced to divulge that was made public, like our donor list?
And what are your prayers?
Right.
Who do you see in the morning before you go to work? And,
right. And do you plan to run for a political?
You mean like normal questions you would get from any normal IRS audit? What prayers do you say in the morning?
Right.
I know those are really shocking because the IRS agents need to know that to see whether you've been cheating on your taxes.
Well, that's got nothing to do with cheating. This is like whether you should
qualify as a 503.
Yeah, 513. So, but the thing about it is that it is a little tricky because you're not supposed to be involved directly in elections, but they're supposed to be doing some kind of a social service or something like that.
But why did you bring up Lois Lerner?
Well, Lois is she quit. She resigned.
She was put on paid administrative leave, if I remember
for about
correctly.
6 months.
Yeah, but she was paid.
But she got in a little dust up with ISIS. Yeah.
Well, you mean the congressional representative from California?
Yeah, he was asking her, did you guys put the lien on all these Tea Parties and exclude them from the election? And she took the fifth. Well, she said she was innocent, then she took the fifth.
She said she was innocent. We've talked about that before.
Right. And I don't think
that's not correct.
I don't think that's going to work out for her. But the question is whether they're going to grant her immunity. And then if she had immunity from prosecution, maybe she would divulge.
Wait a minute. This is the same Lois Lerner. You go back to the 90s where she was working against all conservative political campaigns.
Well, she's involved.
She has a long history of being a political hack job.
Well, no, but it's not a question of
Democrats.
But the thing is not that she's working for them. She's working as a government agent.
Yes, as a government agent, and then she's discriminating against.
Well, but she's just basically working on the campaign.
Yeah.
So she's doing it on.
For who?
Depends on whatever the Liberal Party is, but she's basically, as her government job, she's using her division to run a campaign.
Punish.
Well, no, just to
ensure
that people
they don't have any rights.
People that vote the right way. I mean, look, okay, let's say in the last election, maybe the government spent taxpayer money, maybe $250,000 a vote, right? You don't want that money to be wasted. It's got to be, if you're gonna spend that much money to buy votes, you want to make sure the vote goes the right way.
Yeah, of course.
So that's a big job and it's a huge responsibility, and people who are step up to the plate and really perform. So it's important.
Well,
they get rewarded for it.
Yeah, of course.
They get.
I have no doubt
up.
Lois Lerner will become a multi-millionaire if she keeps her mouth shut.
Right.
Because magically she'll be paid a lot of money to do absolutely nothing. That seems to be the modus operandi of the current administration.
No, she did a good job. She did a great
job.
She did what she was supposed to do.
Pleading the fifth instead of. But the only problem is she pled it after she said, "I'm innocent."
Yeah, well, that is a little. That's got some.
I hope that comes back to bite her because, Mark, if you or I ever said that in under a situation. If I said, "Oh, I'm innocent," and "Oh, by the way, I'm pleading the fifth,"
well, I think they could. I think
you or I would be in lot of
trouble.
but
I think she could have gone to executive privilege too. So she's in a kind of different situation.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with Miss Lerner. So